There are things in life that no matter how far we try to go, there is still an invisible string that silently pulls us back. For me, that string is the small wooden house on a low hill on the outskirts of Pine Hill town, where I grew up, where my grandmother used to make me a cup of hot cocoa every morning, where the windows were always open to let the wind blow in, where the sunlight slanted through the plain curtains every dawn. But for more than 10 years in the city, I tried to forget it. I told everyone that I had grown up, that I needed to find new horizons, big projects, buildings full of glass and steel to prove my worth. That was when I was 24 years old, enthusiastic, competitive, and believing that home was just a departure point, never a return point. But at 35 years old, standing in the middle of a city full of traffic, in a cramped apartment with cold white lights, watching my 8-year-old son wheezing from asthma and my bank account almost emptier after the company went bankrupt, I realized I was wrong. My name is Anne, an architect specializing in greenhouse projects. But to be honest, my life is not green at all. Every day I spend more than 12 hours in a concrete office, eat irregularly, don't sleep enough, work until I'm exhausted and still try to smile at clients to ask for another project. The more I try, the more I slip away from what used to make me happy. And one day I realize I've become what I hated the most as a child. An adult chasing after things that aren't really important. And my son, little Ken, only knows the sky through a dusty glass window, only runs around in a room less than 10 square meters. Every time I went to the doctor, he said, "The living environment has a big impact. If possible, take the baby to a place with less dust." But what choice did I have? I was single, had just divorced for 3 years, had to raise a child, and had to pay off an ever-increasing bank loan. All I had was knowledge about green architecture. But in this city, no one wanted a green architect anymore. They wanted tall buildings, concrete, glass. They wanted profits. Then one autumn afternoon, while I was sorting out the last drawings of the company after the bankruptcy declaration, I received a call from my father. Can you come back? Grandma's house. They're going to demolish it. I stood there stunned. Why demolish it? That house belongs to the family, right? Yes, but it's in the area being cleared for the town's new parking lot. My parents can't keep it. They're paying me a small compensation. They said the wooden house is too old, so we should move it quickly. I leaned against the table, my hands shaking slightly. Oh my God, I gasped. I'm coming back. Tomorrow. That evening, I sat watching Ken inhale the inhaler. My heart sank. He rubbed his eyes and asked softly, Mum, where are we going tomorrow? To Grandma's hometown, I whispered. Do you want to breathe fresh air? Yes, he nodded, his eyes lighting up. I want to see the forest. And the stream too. I smiled, but the corners of my lips trembled. You'll see everything. I packed a few sets of clothes, gathered the necessary documents. The rest I left behind. I didn't need much. Just a place for mother and child to start over. Early the next morning, we set off. The city gradually receded behind, giving way to green hills, straight rows of pine trees, red dirt roads. I saw Ken open the car window, reaching out to catch the wind. He breathed deeply as if he wanted to drink the sky into his chest. I looked at him and felt my heart ache. Why did I have to wait until everything collapsed before I brought my child back to nature, where he should have belonged? As the car drove into the town of Pine Hill, I saw everything was both familiar and strange. The main road was still lined with small shops. The old church was still there. The green coffee shop where I used to work part-time was still there, just with a different owner. But as the car turned onto the slope leading to my grandmother's house, my heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. The house appeared behind the trees, or rather, hidden behind the weeds and vines that covered the front. I stopped the car, got out, and Ken followed. Mom, Ken whispered. Is this house eaten by monsters? I laughed, though my eyes were stinging. No, it's just that no one has taken care of it for too long. The 2-story wooden house that used to be a symbol of warmth to me was now just a dim shadow. The tiled roof, wooden walls and front steps were all covered in moss, cracked and rotten. A window on the 2nd floor was missing. Vines covered the house as if they wanted to swallow it. The grass grew higher than my knees, and in some places it was waist high. I walked closer to the main door. The wooden sign with the word home that my grandmother had hung in front of the door now had only 3 letters: H, O, M, and E. I took a deep breath and put my hand on the door. It felt very strange. It felt like the house was shaking, like it contained something old, waiting to be touched. "Stay behind me," I told Ken. I pushed the door open. It made a long squeak sound, echoing throughout the silent yard. A musty smell rushed out. Dust flew in the light, coming in through the crack in the door. The floor was covered with dry leaves. Cobwebs hung from the ceiling. The sofa was old and broken. The wooden cabinet was rotten. The dining table was tilted to one side. But strangely, I wasn't scared. I felt sorry for it. "Oh." Ken's eyes widened. "Mom, this house looks like a house in a horror movie." "Yeah," I laughed. "But then we'll turn it into a fairy tale." Ken squinted. "Really, Mom?" "Really. Do you believe me?" She nodded vigorously. "Yes." I looked around. I knew one thing very clearly. If I didn't save it, this house would disappear. It would be bulldozed in a few weeks. It would be replaced by a stark, soulless parking lot. Grandma's memories, my childhood, the warmth of the past, would be gone forever. No, I wouldn't allow it. That night, I sat with my parents in the kitchen. They didn't seem surprised when I said, "I want to buy it back and move it." Dad frowned. "You're crazy, Aim. That house is very old. Termites have eaten all the bones. It would cost more to fix than to build a new one." "I don't want to build a new house," I replied. "I want to keep that house and move it to the land my grandparents left me in the valley. I want to transform it into a real greenhouse." "A greenhouse?" Mom repeated. "A house that can breathe," I explained. "Like Grandma did. Wind-oriented windows, trees all around, light in the right places. I believe you can do it." Dad sighed. "You've been away from home for so many years. Now that you're back, I'm just afraid you'll have a hard time." "It's okay to have a hard time," I said. "You just need to give Ken a proper place. And you also need to do the right thing for once." A few seconds of silence, then Mom smiled, placing her hand on mine. "Then do it, son. If Grandma's house comes back, she'll be so happy." I smiled through my tears. The next day, I went to see the town authorities. They were surprised when a volunteer offered to buy the house so they could move it. "Are you sure?" they asked. "That house is rotten. It would be expensive." "I'm sure," I said, "and I'll pay for it." Honestly, I didn't have much money, but I had a profession. I had knowledge. I could design it myself, supervise it myself, and use old materials. And I had confidence, something I had lost over the years. When I signed the papers to buy the house for almost nothing, my hands were shaking. Not because I was afraid, but because I knew my life was taking a new direction. A direction I should have taken a long time ago. I called a cheap cleaning team that my neighbors had recommended. 4 young, strong, cheerful men. Among them was a guy named Hai, who smiled brightly, spoke very quickly, and always had the spirit of, "Whatever Miss Anne gives me, I will do it." They arrived that afternoon, stood in front of the house and exclaimed together, "Oh my God, this house has become a forest." I laughed. "Okay, let's start reclaiming the land." The sound of the lawnmower started. The dense bushes fell down in clumps. The vines were cut, gradually revealing the walls. The old wood color appeared like a breath of the past returning. I stood in front of the porch, rolled up my sleeves and started clearing leaves and sweeping the yard. Ken ran around, picking up stones and chasing dragonflies. The scene was so beautiful that I wanted to stop and record it with all my heart. After a few hours, the front of the house appeared more clearly. But at the same time, I saw something that made my heart ache. Part of the base of the wall was rotten. There were deep cracks next to the window. The wooden skeleton was eaten by termites in many places. "Sister Anne," Hai put his hand on the beam. "I'm telling the truth. This house is about to fall apart." I was silent for a few seconds and then said, "It's okay. We'll replace each part, each nail, each piece of wood. This house is worth saving." He looked at me, then nodded. "Yes, then we'll follow you." They continued clearing the area. I went inside and examined each room. Each step made the floor creak, but I knew that the creak was not a complaint, but a call. "Touch me. Make me alive again." The living room was in the middle. On the left was the kitchen. On the right was the room where my grandmother used to sleep. I opened the door, and dust flew up. On the table was still the ceramic vase my grandmother used to hold flowers. The curtain was torn, but the light blue colour still remained in one corner. On the wall was an old photo frame, the glass broken, a picture of my grandmother hugging me when I was 3 years old. I reached out to touch it, my eyes stinging. "I'll fix it all," I whispered. "I promise, Grandma." The second floor was worse. The door to my parents' bedroom was off its hinges. There were holes in the ceiling, and sunlight shone directly down, making the dust sparkle. But it was here that I discovered what made me cry. In the corner of the attic, under a thick layer of dust, was a small wooden box. I opened it. Inside were my grandmother's scribbles, unprofessional but full of passion. The lines described the wind direction, the light direction, the window position, the notes. Let the house breathe, open east in summer, cover the west wind in winter. Oh my God! Grandma was a green architect before I could read. There was a letter in the box. The paper was yellow, but the words were still intact. To Anne, if one day you come back, let this house breathe with you. I put my hand on my chest. Tears fell. I knew I couldn't give up. The second day, the construction team arrived with a pickup truck full of tools. They said, "Sister Anne, we've calculated. If we want to move this house to another place, we have to remove each wooden panel, renumber them, and then rebuild it on a new foundation. It's very difficult." I nodded. "I know. I can do it." Ken stood next to me, raised his hand. "Can I help?" "Okay," I smiled. "Help Mum pick up nails." In a week, the house was gradually skinned. Every day we cut a few more bushes, removed a few planks, and removed each tile. Each old wooden board was numbered and recorded in its original position to rebuild it exactly as it was. Some were too rotten to be discarded, but I told them to keep the good parts. I would reuse them in another way. While cleaning the warehouse behind the house, Ken discovered an old wooden chair covered in thick dust. He cleaned it, then exclaimed, "Mum, this is a beautiful chair." "Mum, fix it and use it." I looked at the chair. The back of the chair was slightly curved. The wooden base was still sturdy. I remembered my grandmother used to sit in this chair when she was little and read books. I patted her head. "Yes, I will keep it." On the 8th day, the entire roof was removed. On the 10th day, half of the walls were removed. On the 15th day, only the wooden frame remained, exposed to the sunlight, like an old but strangely beautiful skeleton. I stood there, my heart choked. With the rotten wood gone, the house looked as fragile as an old woman, but still standing strong thanks to the spirit inside. "Sister Anne," I called, "it's time to move." Watching the house being carefully loaded into a large truck, my heart ached and felt joy. It was as if I were witnessing a sacred migration. We took the pieces of wood to the new land in the valley, where my grandmother used to grow lavender. The land there was wide, with a small stream running beside it. The wind was cool all year round. This would be where the house would be rebuilt. Rebuilding a house is not like repairing a house. It is like rewriting a story from scratch, but not forgetting the past. We built the frame first. I stood and pointed out the window positions in the direction of the wind, based on my grandmother's old notes. I rebuilt the natural ventilation system, installed skylights, and replanted shrubs according to the principle of catching the sun and blocking the wind. I reused many old materials. Good beams, solid wooden doors, some stair railings, bricks from the old kitchen. As for the damaged parts, I replaced them with ecological materials, pressed bamboo, recycled wood from the town, and environmentally friendly paint. While building the living room, I placed my grandmother's wooden chair in the corner with the best light. Ken said, "Mom, Grandma must be very happy to see it." I hugged him. "Yes, Grandma is watching you two." I made the front yard with small pebbles and replanted rows of lavender on both sides of the path. I opened a large window overlooking the stream, where the wind blew the strongest. I built a long porch for Ken to sit and read stories every afternoon. I placed native plants around the house, small pines, wild mulberry bushes, raspberry bushes. On the last day of the second month, when everything was almost complete, I stood at the door, looking at the house as if looking into my heart. It was no longer a dilapidated house. It was a greenhouse, simple, warm, both classic and modern. It was a witness to two generations, my grandmother's and mine. That evening, my parents came to see it. Dad stood still for a long time, his hands trembling as he touched the wall. "Just like before," he said softly, "but more beautiful, brighter, breathable." Mum's tears fell. "Your grandmother must be so proud." Ken ran up the new stairs, then ran down, laughing. He said, "Mom, this house makes me sick." I laughed. "You're exaggerating." "Really? I feel like I can breathe easier." My eyes suddenly felt heavy. My son, finally, was living a proper life. The day we moved into our new house, I lit a stick of incense and placed it outside the door. "I brought Grandma home," I whispered. The wind blew through the eaves, making the curtains flutter. There was a faint scent of lavender. I sensed something, gentle, warm, like a hug from the past. The next day, I officially started drawing the project. I named it Breathing House. And surprisingly, just a few weeks later, many people in town came to ask. I also want to renovate my house in a green style. My house is too hot. Can you help me? I have an old house. Can you advise me on keeping it? I didn't advertise. I didn't need to. The house spoke for itself. I opened a small office right in the living room. Every morning, I sat working in the golden sunlight next to the open window to let the wind in, listening to Ken playing in the yard. I designed greenhouses for people. Simple, easy to build, low cost. They called me the breathing architect. At night, Ken and I sat on the porch, listening to the sound of the stream, watching the fireflies. He leaned his head on my shoulder and said, "Mom, our new house is like your heart." I burst out laughing. "Why do you think so?" "Because I opened the door to let the wind in. Opened the door to let the sun in. Like I reopened our happiness. I hugged my child for a long time. My life has come a long way to realize the most important thing. There are houses just waiting for the right person to come back to live again. There are memories just waiting for the right moment to bloom. And there are roads, no matter how far they turn, in the end, they still lead us back to where we belong. I saved my grandmother's house, but actually, it was it that saved me.